That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. Volume 14. Prologue. The Clown's Decision. The intelligence has not yet reached the Empire. But it should be a happy thing for the subjects of the Empire. The Imperial soldiers, their kinsmen, who were supposed to attack the Western countries through the Great Forest of Jura, became complete lambs to the slaughter. No one thought that nearly 1 million Imperial legions would be defeated. Whoever it was convinced that this army would be able to fulfill the imperial ambitions of conquering the Western states and establishing a unified state fully under the rule of Emperor Rudra. The Great Forest of Jura used to be a ghost gate. Now that Veldora was weakened, there was no longer anything to be feared. It was supposed to be that way. Under the rule of the Great Emperor, the attack of the strongest imperial legions of all time has finally begun at this moment. This was the view of the subjects in general, and no one ever thought of defeat or even of going through a bitter battle. No one could have imagined that the imperial army would be crushed in the Great Forest of Jura without even touching the territories of the Western countries. In fact, the imperial army was really wiped out without doing anything. The Jura Tempest Federation, whom they looked down on completely, had taught them what it meant to have someone outside of you and a sky outside of you. It won't be long before the subjects of the Empire will know these facts. A stronghold of the mixed imperial legions. In the luxurious room allotted to the army chief, some people had gathered quietly. The room is headed by Yuki, the owner of the room, followed by Cagali, Laplace, Tyr, Footman and others in the middle of the clown company, and one of the big three, Misha. Vega had gone off to join the Warcraft Legion in combat and wasn't here this time. Laplace and Misha debriefed first. Yuki couldn't help but smile bitterly after listening. All sorts of preconceived notions were made before, but the results are still, shall we say, beyond expectations, too overwhelming, too much faster than one might think. The results of the Battle of Rimuru and others were so great that Yuki had to readjust his strategy again. What was most startling, though, was the increased power of Demon Lord Rimuru. I didn't expect for them to destroy such an army so easily. Although they were expected to win early on, it's horrifying to win with 0 casualties. I can't believe that such a large army, even if it were to start a war with the 3 Demon Lords at the same time, it would be possible to fight all the way. No, compared to the 10 great Demon Lords, the 8-star Demon Lords are not on the same level. Guy alone, Ruminers and Dagrul have been battling for supremacy all along, right? The forces of Leon are familiar to you, even Milim, who previously had no subordinates, and now the original Demon King Carrion and Frey have become her subordinates. It's still the Light Rod Commander, just Ramirez and Dino, right? Cagali voiced her opinion, but after listening to Yuki's explanation, a look of comprehension returned. Indeed, things were different compared to when Cagali was a Demon Lord. There is no need for discussion about Guy. Milim, on the other hand, was now the ruler of the vast territory south of the Great Forest of Jura. Ruminers and Dagrul, even after fighting with the angels, their power has not been reduced, and has always been a very large power. Leon is kind of exception even if not mentioned. Those new Demon Lords when Cagali was still a Demon Lord are simply not worth mentioning. Whether or not a slightly more subordinate Demon Lord survives is a matter of luck, as is the case with Cagali, the original Curse Lord Kazarim. It was because of this that they had to rack their brains to establish collaborative relationships with other monsters, and they had to resort to various means in order to survive. The Blood Lord Roy Valentine is only a shadow martial artist, and the god Ruminers is the Demon Lord, but even Ruminers is not able to win against Dagrul in the power struggle. They're not the same class as scum like me. What an envy of those with power. Carrion and Frey are so smart, if only I could live smarter. That way, nothing that would make everyone sad would happen, and there would be no loss of Clayman. In retrospect, the compulsory collection of many monsters as henchmen was of little use, and even if the number was too large, the Legion would be of little use in the face of strongmen who exceeded a certain level of strength. Clayman's failure is proof enough of that. What they really should be doing, Cagali thought, is adding companions who are able to push the envelope. No, these are all hindsight now. For us, who have been betrayed, it's impossible to trust anyone. If I hadn't met Yuki, I'm afraid I would still be resenting the world even now. Now that it was over, Cagali felt no need to think about it and just buried the regret in her heart. The conversation was still going on, not taking into account these things that were on Cagali's mind. After all, it's been hard work, Laplace. Yeah, that's right. This one's bad too. Laplace nodded with a very weary look on his face. Ha ha, the battle lasted 10 days? Yes, that big sister named Thraney has become so strong that it's exaggerated. Don't be cruel to her. The one who doesn't pay attention to our family is the one who will be killed. And it's not good for our family that the battlefield is in the forest, so we're working really hard. Laplace let out a huff. The suspicious appearance was of his own making, but this time there seemed to be something to think about. Yuki soothed him for a moment and continued. Anyway, did you finally get them to believe you? You can't resist being tied up like this, and I'm being watched by Rimuru the Demon Lord's subordinates, so I don't think you can believe it. However, Laplace deserves credit for successfully negotiating and bringing back information. I can't believe you're still free. I thought we were supposed to have a relationship with Guy Crimson, so instead of trusting the boss, we're taking advantage of the situation. Had the hostile position been singled out, the captured Laplace would not have been released, except that in that case, Laplace would not have gone as deep into the bargaining. Laplace grumbled in response. Yuki also felt a little more relieved for the time being, but he couldn't relax just yet. I felt the same way Lord Laplace did. This time it was really exhausting. It was my task to stir up the head of the Calgurio army and delay the war for as long as it lasted, and I understood that it was my task, but halfway through I did offer to withdraw. When my offer was rejected, I even thought of running away even if I killed that man. Misha said bitterly. But then again, by the time she suggested it, it was too late. The reason why Misha was able to escape was because of Yuki's co-fighting relationship with Rimuru. If not for that, she would have died at the hands of Diablo long ago. Lucky for you, Rimuru is the kind of person who keeps his word. That slime called Rimuru is an anomaly. From what I remember, there should be a strong man in the Mecha Legion who can match the Demon Lord. Yes, there is. But before Demon Lord Rimuru could show his hand, he was killed by his men. Even the terrifying demon male had become a subordinate of Rimuru, and Misha had an unbearable look on her face. Things were too unrealistic for Misha, so it was perfunctory to talk about them. Unfettered by anyone, this supreme being of the demon race actually followed the instructions of a demon lord. I was struck by the fact that the single-digit duo was killed as easily as a mouse, and frankly, it was stupid to challenge that monster. The sum of it all is hard for anyone to believe. To change this heavy atmosphere, Yuki tried to change the subject. The identities of Bonnie and Ju surprised me. I didn't expect to be tricked by Damrada like this, and I'm just as upset about it. Those are the heartfelt words of Yuki. Damrada is a traitor, an event that comes as a shock to Yuki and the others. Damrada, who had been trusted by Yuki's heart for so many years, was a big subordinate who had penetrated deep into the heart of Yuki's camp. The level of trust is high enough for Yuki to entrust him with the important task of secretly associating with the Big Three Imperial landing site, and such a figure is a traitor, making it necessary to rethink the strategy all along. While Masayuki, who had been treated as a pariah by Yuki, had sent two powerful men to follow him, the incident also proved that Damrada had more vision than Yuki. Damrada presumably used his higher vision than Yuki's to influence the actions of Yuki and others, and upon sensing this, Yuki's self-esteem really became tattered. Yeah, in retrospect, Clayman's rampage seems to have had Damrada involved. A puzzled Cagali said. In response, Yuki nodded in agreement. There's no denying that our plans have failed one by one, and it's strange to think of it now. However, I don't think Damrata gets anything out of it. Our power has become so large in large part because of Damrata's assistance, and if you want to take away our power, it would be better not to give it to us from the beginning. There are doubts here, but Damrata seems drunk on Yuki-sama and doesn't seem to be acting and feels loyal. It was also with his help that we completed the various projects. As a colleague, my opinion is that, honestly, Damrata is serious about working for the organization, has a good track record and should be really loyal to the boss in my opinion. However, it is also true that the man has a ruthless and cold side, and being in charge of the money side shows his rationalistic thinking. So the betrayal of the boss for some reason should be a no. There was no way to say it wasn't possible, that's what Misha said. Yuki replied to her with a shake of his head. There is no doubt that Damrata has betrayed, but it is not clear whether he has done it from the heart or not. No, it was actually a genuine betrayal, Yuki muttered again and laughed bitterly. I also agree with boss. If it's all acting, it's hard to see the point of Damrata's actions. Kagali came to the same conclusion as Yuki, and then she began to state her opinion. Let me explain. According to Jidora-sensei's report, we learn of Damrata's betrayal, that the place where Jidora was killed was in Emperor Rudra's castle, and that standing in front of the teacher seems to be the man lurking in the shadows of the empire, Lieutenant Kondo. The Emperor's castle, so it is, Damrata's identity is enough to enter that place, isn't it? Misha responded. Yuki nodded at her, then added some more information. Yeah, and by the way, according to the information you got back, what Damrata's true identity is also discussed as a result. There should be very few people who can order a single digit, except for the Emperor. Yuki's words dawned on the crowd. I see. That's right. Come to think of it, it's extremely obvious. Yes, Damrata is not betraying us, just following the Emperor's orders. It may not have been his intention, but it doesn't matter now. Maybe it was the enemy of Yuki and others from the beginning, maybe it wasn't. But the results of the status quo only show that Damrata is a traitor. Then there are the people like Laplace who cannot accept such treachery. Indeed, boss should be right. But Damrata might have fooled Clayman, can't we just cut him some slack? Yeah. Miss Benz, men will go over there and kill him. Ooh. The House of Everything has a reputation first and will not tolerate betrayers. The frivolous proposal purges Laplace. Tyr and Footman agreed. However, Yuki stopped the three of them. Wait, Damrata's true identity, being the superior of the Imperial Emperor's Order of Near Guard, is undoubtedly more dangerous than the average demon lord. Is it still a question whether you few can win? Even though it was a sneak attack, Damrata also solved Jidora-sensei with a single blow, so it can be seen that the strength is quite strong. That being said, but what's more, I think there's a message in Damrata's actions. After a moment's thought, Yuki uttered this sentence. Then, with a hypothetical in mind, one begins to state one's thoughts. Damrata is very careful, knows our information, and also knows the information about the demon Lord Rimuru. What does that mean? That is, Damrata may have sensed the resurrection of Jidora. But in that case, is it? Wouldn't that be the same as releasing Jidora? A possibility that had also occurred to Misha. The man who confronted Jidora at the end was a weirdo who feeds on information, wasn't he? If we let Jidora live, it will fall into the hands of Lieutenant Kondo, and by that time, we will use every means possible to get information that Jidora knows. In that case, our purpose will all be known to each other. Is that what you mean? Probably, but there's still something I don't understand, and by gagging Jidora, I've avoided giving away information about Rimuru, and as a result, the Empire has suffered great losses, and it is hard to imagine that Damrata has caused the Empire to suffer because of his love for us. Yuki smiled bitterly, unable to explain this. Hearing this, Kagali began to speak her mind again. It shouldn't be wrong to say that Damrata is more loyal to Emperor Rudra than Lord Yuki. But at the same time, he is treating us as companions. No, is thinking that we can be used, or wants us to take on some aspect of the task, and if so, what happens? Go ahead. The defeat of the Imperial army also follows the Emperor's wishes. There may be such a possibility. How is that possible? That's not possible, is it? Misha and Laplace immediately objected, while Yuki pondered with interest. This possibility is deduced on the basis of which purpose of Damrata? Very briefly, a great deal of death is necessary for large rituals, just as the awakening of a demon lord requires a great number of souls, so wouldn't Damrata and Emperor Rudra treat the Imperial army as a sacrifice? It's possible, go on. That being the case, there's nothing unbelievable about getting in the way of Kondo, who is determined to win. Again, this gives a slight indication of why Damrata let us go. Jidora had intended to ascend to the Emperor, and Damrata came out to obstruct. If the information in Jidora's possession falls into Kondo's hands, the Imperial army's casualties might not have been so great, and more to the point, the combat action taken against Raimuru would surely have taken a different form. How could Damrata not see the stakes and therefore see that his actions were deliberate? So, what is the purpose? A litmus test? Well, yes. Hearing Yuki's reply, Kagali smiled with satisfaction. In order to give birth to the truly powerful, many sacrifices were made by acquiescence. And we, too, have been used as pawns in the birth of the strong, right? Or it could be, trying to bribe us. What? Clayman, he's not going to listen to anyone other than me and Kagali, right? Yeah, Definitely. If he let Clayman storm off like that, he must have used some kind of hidden technique. Is it, say, brainwashing? Yuki nodded in response to Kagali's accusation. Even if it's not that powerful, I think it's still under the influence of thought inducement. It's possible that some kind of prop was used like us, and there's also the possibility that there's a dominating power like Mariabelle's. Hearing this inference, the entire crew's expressions turned rigid. It's a pain in the ass. Misha's words were echoed by the crowd. Looking around at his companions, Yuki chuckled. But rest assured, this power is ineffective against me. From now on, I will touch each of you a little. Is that okay? All members indicated no problems. At this point, mere denial would be tantamount to admitting to being in control, and it would be impossible to reject Yuki's proposal even to prove his innocence. Looks like everyone hasn't been brainwashed. However, if you're not acting alone, I think you'll be fine. In that case, our house is in danger. Laplace said this after standing up and spinning around. However, Yuki and Kagali very tacitly dismissed what he said. No. You're okay. Yeah, well, you don't have to, but this kind of heart. Hearing this, Laplace sat down again as if he were making a fuss and started to whine. What? You should be more worried about our family, really. Laplace's witty manner blew away the heavy air in the room. After the laughter, the group began to switch thoughts. He expressed his gratitude for this, and Yuki said as if he was going to regain his momentum. All right. Yes, I'd like to question Damrata about how much of our plan has been compromised. Hey, now's the time to say something like that? Our family's plan was already exposed, right? After all, Damrata knows all about the plan, and it's no longer a matter of exposing or not exposing. Yes. Isn't it better to run away now? I can't do that either. Now, Yuki's faction has shifted its stronghold to the Empire. Although there were still some lurking in the western states, it was a very small number. It's simply not possible to fully place there, and new hideaways are not that easy to arrange. Most importantly, there is simply too little preparation time for all the members at the bottom to escape. At least, it's impossible for me to run the Big Three on my own, partly because of Damrata's ability and the fact that people have relied on him in the past, and partly because I don't have a good idea of what his men are like. The other giant, Vega, has no merit other than violence and simply can't be expected to do anything about the running of the organization. That's why Misha said what she said. I know. The big three have to take their heads off. Damrida's men could all be banished, but the problem is that here in the Hybrid Legion, it would be a shame to give up all that power, mainly to avoid losing all their strongholds. Cutting flesh is a means to an end, but the loss this time is just too great. If you can't find a place for 100,000 people in this world, then you have to give up your men. If this is done, those who stay will no doubt be purged. In fact, based on speculation about Damrida's thoughts, it is estimated that he did not tell Yuki's secret. While there could be several reasons for Damrida to seal Jidora's mouth, I think one of them would be to keep the information from being given to Kondo. Presumably, the Emperor's near guard is not ironclad either. Isn't the imperial coup we're planning, Damrida, hoping to succeed too? Although I don't understand his intentions, if Damrida wants to hide our secrets, then that's the only purpose. Yuki and Kagali follow each other's thoughts and keep speaking their minds. The others could only look at them in confusion, and Laplace seemed unable to resist, interjecting loudly just to interrupt their conversation. No, 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 wait a minute. Letting Jidora go on purpose is just bosses. Speculation, right? In that case, isn't it highly likely that all of this is an illusion? Everyone thought it was a solid opinion, but Yuki replied confidently, that's not possible.
Listen to me, okay?
Our plan for the coup was the result of a deal with the Demon Lord Guy, and Damrida knew about it. Rather than get in the way of our plans, it would be better to fool Guy by causing chaos within the Empire, wouldn't he think so? With that kind of thinking, there should be. This girl doesn't understand. Ho, 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 ho. Tyr and Footman can't seem to keep up with the conversation anymore, and the duo is already playing with the rag. There is chaos in the Empire. Will the Emperor's inner circle allow this to happen? Misha just summed up her thoughts, not being able to keep up with Yuki and Kagali's perspective on things. In a sense, her reaction was sort of normal. After all, Yuki and the others think in terms of being willing to make all kinds of sacrifices to get there, an idea that is absolutely intolerable to people who hold absolute rationality in their thinking. What's more, Yuki's idea of them being self-facilitating to the fullest, and even feeling full of contradictions in the perspective of others' thinking, was an extremely insane way of thinking that Misha couldn't understand. It's an unreasonable demand to be understood. Misha, there's no need to think that complicated. What's important is who Damrida sees as the enemy and to look at it from that perspective. Damrida, from the beginning to the end, had never considered Yuki Summer and Demon Lord Rimuru as enemies, and the enemy in his eyes had always been Guy Crimson. Once that is understood, it will be clear why they have acquiesced to our riots within the imperial capital. Kondo was different. He didn't just treat Guy as an enemy. Anyone who was against the Emperor would be treated as an enemy, looking at things from a completely different perspective than Damrida. That's how he served the Emperor. That's why the confrontation was possible, and Yuki came to this conclusion. Kagali affirmed this. Well, now that Boss and Lord Kagali have said so, we believe so. Without further thought, Laplace asserted his belief. Tyr and Footman keep pace with Laplace. As for Misha, the central question is raised. Then, Yuki Summer, what's your future policy? Since it has been decided that Damrida is the enemy, it is of course impossible to trust him, no matter how sincere he may be. So, abort the coup, admit the impossibility and choose to hide? Fortunately, now that 60% of the mixed legions have gone to fight in the Dwarf Kingdom's eastern city blockade, and with the remaining battle strength in the imperial capital, I will provide as much support as possible, so it shouldn't be difficult to take any city as long as it is a stronghold. And then unite the nations that are discontented with the empire and form a great coalition against it. Aha! Wouldn't this be the battle plan with the best chance of winning if you could save the most battle power? It's a nice place, oppressed by the imperial nobility. If you look for it, there will be a place like that, where we can fight the banner of the Liberation Army, so? Unfortunately, the proposal is rejected. That was why, Misha was about to ask, but couldn't. If we want to survive, we have to choose a coup d'état. Am I right, Damrada? Without waiting for Misha to ask, Yuki spoke first. Before Misha could understand the meaning of the phrase, the clowns present were already in a pro forma state first. Then the tightly closed door was opened and a man walked in. That's right, boss. It was Damrada who came. Still in businessman's garb as usual, but giving the impression that he is no longer hidden and is entirely military. The air in the room suddenly became tense, and Laplace, who was about to strike, was stopped by Damrada in a calm voice. Stop, this building is surrounded by my men. Yuki, who was observing the situation, saw this sight and sank his body into the couch with the strength to relax his shoulders. Do you have time to talk more? If you have one, you sit too. Boss, there's no time for that now.
It's okay,
Just sit down, too. Pacifying the disgruntled Laplace first, Yuki looked at Damrada with a fearless smile on his face. So, what's your purpose? Because I feel like I've been misunderstood by the boss, I'm here to explain that I have something I can't say. He said, changing to take a seat in the seat indicated by Yuki. The change in attitude left Laplace and the others with nothing to do but feel irritated. Then, regardless of what the people around them thought, the Q&A between Yuki and Damrada started first. A difficult thing to say, huh? Yes, I really hope the boss's coup is successful. So, what about letting Ghidorah go? Are you sure you're all right? I just took a gamble on this one, but I thought that man was so careful, I thought he'd survive. To avoid information falling into Kondo's hands? Exactly. Didn't you swear allegiance to the Emperor? I did take an oath. You did, huh? What about now? No matter how many times I say it, you probably won't believe it, but I am loyal to the boss. How can this be believed? Yeah. The two were laughing and exchanging words. By blocking the information that Ghidorah had, the Mecha Legion was almost wiped out. Plus right now, the Monster Beast Legion was far from the Imperial capital, and even if the news of the Mecha Legion's defeat came back, it would take quite a while for them to rush back. Right now, the defensive battle power within the Imperial capital has been drastically reduced. Don't you think now is a great time to do it? Yes. I even think it's too good for us to be in this situation. That's right, it took years to create the conditions that existed. Damrada, boss, lived to defeat His Majesty Rudra. This is the only way to save His Majesty, and for that, the best thing to do is to let you take over the world. The idea has not changed, everything is ready, and the rest is your decision. Ha! Yuki grunted in bemusement. All went according to Damrada's plan, making Yuki feel unhappy in his heart, but the refusal is something to think about, and the situation, as Damrada says, could not be better arranged. The problem is just that one has to believe that about Damrada. I have a question. Be my guest. Why didn't you talk to me and let Clayman be the outcast? Between Yuki and the moderate clown troupe, they swore to each other that they would never betray each other, and are the rare people in the world who can trust each other. One of them, Clayman, was also an important companion for Yuki. Kagali, Laplace, Tyr, and Footman all turned pale at this questioning from Yuki, their eyes focused on Damrada, giving the impression that lying was never allowed. In the midst of this murderous atmosphere, Damrada still replied calmly. I had nothing to do with Clayman. I knew who the prisoner was, but I didn't think he would use such tactics. The scene was greeted with a moment of silence, but Yuki broke that silence again. He's talking about Tatsuya Kondo. You seem to know a lot about Kondo, and you have a lot of secrets. To the Damrada, who had fallen into silence, Yuki stated his claim. Damrada just listened to Yuki with a bitter look on his face. When Yuki finished, Damrada replied softly. Because it is forbidden, I cannot answer you all. About Kondo, I don't know how good he really is either. I can't say anything else except that. Nonetheless, I hope you will believe that in order to save His Majesty Rudra. The clown's icy stares fell straight on Damrata. Everyone had a look of disbelief on their faces. The same goes for Yuki. It's just that things are not looking good for Yuki. Outside the building, there were not only Damrata's men, but there was also a sense that it was impossible to ignore. Presumably, Damrata had also brought the superior strength of the Near-Guard Knights with him. It would be difficult to break through such an encircling net, even for people like Yuki. It's just that I alone may have a way, and it's probably going to be harder to keep the whole crew safe, so accepting his proposal would be one of the options. Yuki counted in his heart. Suddenly, Yuki sensed Damrata's unflinchingly determined gaze. That look, completely unchanged from when they first met. Yuki closed his eyes and began to think back. From the moment they met, Damrata has been a bold and cheeky man, willing to take on any job as long as money is paid. However, they will spend a lot of money for their companions, and their actions are full of contradictions. I am willing to make any sacrifice for the sake of those I believe in, as Damrata once said. Whose figure was reflected in the eyes of Damrata at that time? It's not me. Yet, those eyes are a delight to behold. Afterwards, he also began to call Yuki boss and took an oath of loyalty. That said, there are still aspects of Damrata that one is afraid to trust. Looking back now, perhaps feeling lonely, realizing that, Yuki opened his eyes and looked at Damrata. There are lies in your words. You swore loyalty to Emperor Rudra long before you were loyal to me, and it hasn't changed since, has it? Oh, I can't beat you, boss. That statement stands for affirmation. This instead became an opportunity for Yuki to believe in Damrata. Well, instead of fighting you, let's make the coup work. No one has expressed displeasure with Yuki's decision. I can't help it, since Yuki-sama has decided, we'll just obey. Yes, Damrata, if you betray me, my family will settle the score with you. Together, la place. Ho, 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 don't forget me. The clowns made up their minds. Because, they believe in Yuki as boss. They do have a bond between them that ties them together as companions. Damrata is, likewise, included. Chapter 1. Rewards and Evolution. The day after the resurrection of almost 700,000 imperial officers and soldiers. The guys who were active in this defensive battle lined up and stood in the arena, and the auditorium was filled with soldiers from the base. Today is the celebration. The war with the Empire was still going on and morale needed to be kept high, so we got this event going. The paladins sent Bacchus and Rumina's supernaturals also attended. They had been killed by Jew, but fortunately things happened in the labyrinth and they all came back to life intact and accepted our thanks as well. Although they are unanimous in saying it's us who are not mature enough, after all, this is happening in our country, and a formal apology is important. In short, it's better that the hazards can be kept to a minimum than anything else. Delicious cuisine was arranged for the second half of the celebration, so I hope they can relax and enjoy it. There were also guests from foreign countries at the welcome table. Among them were Albis, who had fought as reinforcements, and Phobio, who had been one step slower, and the two Wings, who had come with an elite contingent only. Lady Frey was so worried about Lord Raimoru that she sent us here. But it's really not necessary. In fact, we also believed that if it were Lord Raimoru, he would win. Lucretia, the blonde, and Clee, the silver, spoke to me in a moving duet. Milim seemed to be worried, too, but it would be a relief to just tell her about this victory. The town is also blessed with the blessings of Veldora and Ramirez and should soon return to a smooth routine. I'm the liaison. I was sent here as insurance because the magic call was not working. And, no, I'm being rude. In case we lose, the liaison officer will go back to his country and bring reinforcements immediately. Phobio with the fastest foot range was chosen considering the possibility that the mana force field was scrambled and unable to use magic. Phobio seemed to have something more to say, but closed his mouth again halfway through. The fact that his eyes were turning to Albie's made it a bit of a concern, but the thought of it being in the past anyway, I didn't take it seriously. I thanked the three and led them to the VIP table. The guests have another set. Guests from Dworgen. Jane, the old woman who had served as the chief court magician of Dworgen, came along as her escort, along with Dorf, the commander of the Knights of the Heavenly Flying Order. This group is mainly here to complain. It's amazing to use the forbidden spell in the Great Forest of Jura. Plus, why did the primordials work for me? The other guy's eyes changed over it. Honestly, I'm sorry about that too. But there's nothing you can do about it. It is a force majeure when one realizes that the raw rice is already cooked. It's not a matter of force majeure. I've lived so long and never experienced a state of affairs that has shocked me so much once. I'm sorry. There is no longer any other way but to apologize. In any case, first lower your posture and try to impress the other person. To be honest, I would have liked to see Granny Jane just go straight back, but I couldn't not discuss the future. Let's just say, that seems to be the real purpose of the other side's visit. Outside the eastern metropolis of Dworgen, there were still 60,000 of Yuki's men laying out there. But I've already told Garzel that it's a tentative alliance with Yuki, so there's no war between the two sides, it's just maintaining the tension. However, the whole thing can't be left untouched, so I thought it would be a good idea to have a meeting with Yuki to discuss the way forward. Laplace, who was captured earlier, has been released back to take word to that side for me, and now we are waiting for Yuki's contact. Anyway, Granny Jane and Mr. Dorf were also taken to the VIP table, inviting them to the celebration. In this way, the celebration began in the presence of many foreign guests. The position I'm in now is set up on the commendation stage, one level higher than the rest, and is currently sitting in the chair above that in the form of a slime. Riga and Rigard stood side by side behind me. Led by these two, the other civil officials also stood in 2 rows. Underneath the stage, even the 10 lords of the labyrinth, who were rarely seen, had arrived. That's par for the course, after all, they are the main characters of the day. Originally, the labyrinth lords were known to look bad, but today there is no such problem. To say why, it was because the townspeople and the adventurers who served as volunteers were not called in this time. The first to appear was Shuna, who was standing next to me. She opened with my words and then began her speech of consolation to the crowd. The presentation was excellent, but it wasn't something I came up with. Shuna thought. More than the first and second secretaries, Shuna is more capable as a secretary. It was a real help to me who wasn't good at speaking. Xion was not fit for a speech, and handing it to Diablo was unsettling. The praise alone was enough for this guy to speak in one breath until the celebration was over. I started thinking about the next session while being grateful to have Shuna by my side. This celebration is arranged so that awards will be given along with the publication of merits. In other words, I'm going to let my men try out that thing called awakening. According to the King of Wisdom, by giving 100,000 souls, his men can awaken and evolve, becoming stronger than the true demon lord. The guy has to have qualifications to be a receiver of this, but what is shocking is that there are actually 12 of such guys. To ask who exactly, it was Ranga, Benimaru, Xion, Gable, Geld, Diablo, Testarossa, Ultima, Herrera, Kumara, Zijin, and Adalman. Being spiritually connected to me and being a demon lord seed seems to be the requirement. The one that is more concerning is Adalman. I didn't give this guy a name, but why would he qualify for evolution? Answer. Personal name. Adalman's heart of faith breaks a certain number and now establishes a connection to the Master R. I taught Adalman the mystery of faith and grace that I had learned from Ruminers. Because of this, he and I have a connection that rivals the name. Awesome, Adalman. To be able to qualify on one's own, this power of faith was really not an ordinary fierce one. Though it tickles the back of one's mind to think of me as an object of faith, here's an honest compliment to him. I understand the Adalman thing. The next problem is being able to get a few people to evolve. The number of souls I have here is about 1 million. The secret of this is that I have the King of Wisdom. Notice, the existence of individual gaps in the resulting soul is confirmed. Should the equalization reconstitution process be performed? Yes/no. Asking this question, I chose yes even though I didn't understand much, after which the number of souls swelled to over 1 million. I had returned a number of energies to Imperial officers and soldiers who had come back from the dead, and had expected the number of souls to decrease slightly, but it turned out to be just the opposite. There were awakened people like Calgurio in the Imperial army, and there were also a considerable number of strong people amongst the guys who attacked the labyrinth, all of whom contained a much greater amount of energy than normal people. In addition, although Jew's and Bonnie's strength was borrowed, it was at least an ultimate ability, so it had also seized a large amount of energy. Some people, though individual, hold the energy of hundreds to tens of thousands of souls, simply put. For these reasons, the awakening of 10 men became possible. But there are a few things to worry about if it's really going to be implemented. One is the issue of intelligence leaks.
Is it really okay to do something so exaggerated in front of guests like Albies and Granny Jane?
However, on this issue I decided to trust the other side. It has nothing to do with alliances, mainly because in the end it will be exposed anyway. Trying to fool Millen was impossible. King Garzel had been trusted with that time in Diablo. As angry as Granny Jane might be, now that even the labyrinthine forces were exposed, none of this was anything. Anyway, those who participated in the maze raid would definitely spread the news of how powerful the labyrinth lords were by then. There is little point in hiding it from those present now. The second is not knowing what will happen after awakening. Since this was the first attempt at awakening evolution, there was the possibility of unpredictable things happening, so I had Ramirez use her powers to isolate the entire arena of this fight. That way, no matter what happens, the hazard shouldn't spread to the outside world. Also, by doing so, one can keep secrets and kill 2 birds with 1 stone. The last thing to worry about is the Harvest Festival of Evolution that appeared when I awakened as a demon lord. At the time, I was in a state of low activity, unconscious for 3 consecutive days. If the same situation were to happen this time, it would mean putting the main subordinates to sleep during the war. In that case, there's nothing we can do in 2 or 3 days, and it's very worrying if something happens. After some minor annoyance, I decided that this wasn't a problem either. The Imperial Army no longer exists. According to the information from Calgurio's investigation, the Mecha Legion has no more left to fight. After all, 940,000 soldiers have been killed by us, so there can't be any leftover forces. There were only the Warcraft Legion and the Hybrid Legion left on the Imperial side. The Hybrid Legion led by Yuki were allied with us for the time being, while the Warcraft Legion was transported elsewhere by the Air Combat Flying Corps, the ace unit of the Mecha Legion. With my Argos, God's Eye, I was able to track the movements of the aircraft. According to calculations, it would take more than 3 days to reach our country from where they were, even if they turned right away. The airship's usual speed averaged about 400 km per hour, and its maximum combat speed seemed to exceed the speed of sound, but the excessive consumption of magical power seemed to last only a short time. When all is said and done, the ability to fly long distances continuously at that speed makes one wonder. While possessing a boat or train with a speed unmatched by any other, it seems that in the air you will also encounter a threat that only exists in the air. For example, locations where the air currents fiercely turned into whirlpools, or locations where the magic element chaos couldn't unleash any magic, etc. Even more troublesome is that there seems to be a habitat for the empty monster, so the hovercraft cannot travel in a straight line when sailing, but must set a safe course. The means of moving at the speed of sound is indeed a threat in this world, but it doesn't seem as beneficial as one might think. So I don't think this side needs to be too guarded. All that remained was the possibility of the Imperial Emperor's order of near guard going out. This time we were able to achieve a landslide victory because of the advantage of the maze. It is because of the ability to die and rise again that we can calmly respond. I should be able to beat those near guard knights. Regardless, Benimaru should be able to take the win. However, what about Xion and Ranga? Gable and Geld are probably pretty dangerous too. So that being said, it's important to be prepared as early as possible to cope. At least be able to stall for time in sudden encounters with strong opponents. If we can establish a soul corridor between my subordinates and my soul, it seems that we can make the connection between us more solid. In that case, no matter what happens, they should be able to contact me through thought communication. When you encounter a strong enemy, you contact me and try to reinforce the enemy, and that's the basic operation. Be prepared, so I want to help everyone awaken while I can. Beware of a boat that sails for years. All in all, it's arguably a very good time. Then I should get started as soon as I can. The one initially named was, of course, Benimaru. As Grand General, he did a very good job of commanding the entire army. Although Benimaru himself seemed to show some displeasure at the active performance of the Testarossa girls, but that was an accident. Benimaru wasn't wrong, and I'm certainly more innocent. Nothing went wrong in the end anyway, so it's totally safe to say that Benimaru's job was well done. After Shuna finished her speech, she called Benimaru over. In response, Benimaru walked up and knelt down in front of me. Yes. Then Benimaru-kun. I'm going to reward you next. Can you stop that kun thing? You're up to something again, aren't you? Unintelligible. I'm obviously not doing anything yet. How is it seen through? Actually, this awakening evolution, I'm going to make it a surprise. Because I think that if we discuss it beforehand, we will definitely be opposed to it, so it's good to implement it quietly. Shuna was reading out Benimaru's feats, and during this time, the whispers between me and Benimaru continued. Actually, I've gotten a lot of souls through this war. The Testarossa girls seem to have given them all to me. And then, it seems that these things can be used to help people who are connected to me to awaken. Why haven't I heard? Because I'm just saying it now? Benimaru and I stared at each other wide-eyed, because I feel like I'm being opposed to speaking out. Benimaru is unexpectedly serious, always giving people the impression that they want to be strong on their own. When I evolved into the Demon Lord, he seemed to have something in mind as well. If it was Diablo or Xion, the feeling would have been happily accepted. So, what do you mean by awakening? Great question. At that time, I increased my amount and power of magicule levels by more than 10 times, and on top of that, I was able to grant blessings to all the magical creatures connected to the Soul Tether genealogy. The growth rate of others after awakening is unknown, but the strength will increase dramatically, and this can't be wrong. Well, in short, didn't I evolve when I became Demon Lord? It's the same phenomenon. Just think of it as evolving into a Demon Lord. Huh? That is to say, not only me, but even my subordinates will be affected. I think that's probably it. How widespread the impact will be is unclear, but at least the Kurenai will be blessed. No, 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 it's so important. How can you come up here without talking about it beforehand? Wait a minute. Maybe you're right, but this is not the time for a Q&A. It's not clear what kind of strong men are still among the enemy, so our battle strength must be strengthened as well, right? Although that's true. Benimaru closed his eyes in annoyance. After a while, he opened his eyes again and looked at me with a deep sigh. Looks like he's come to his senses. He might as well have just given up on rebuttal, but it wouldn't have made much difference. Well, I'm not the only one who needs to be awakened, am I? I think there's a danger that this will lead to a temporary decline in battle strength. Have you considered this aspect? There are 12 guys who are eligible for awakening, but only 9 can be awakened at the moment. I was going to let Testarossa and the girls stay as escorts. A few days of reduced battle strength should be no problem, I see. There's the maze, too. It's not a problem if you just stall for time. Benimaru seemed to accept my instructions. The rest of the question is the possibility of storming out. But there's one thing I care about. What is it? You are stronger now than I was when I first evolved. Since the growth rate after awakening is unknown, it's possible for you to be even stronger than me after evolution. In that case, I probably would have received some kind of feedback through the food chain of the king of gluttony with the extreme power. Even so, it was still possible for Benimaru to become stronger than me. That said, it always felt like Diablo was definitely going to get better than me. I don't think Benimaru and the others would betray, but the possibility of these guys being swayed by forces that cause a rampage is hard to dismiss.
It felt like it would be okay to have this isolation space in place to prevent a rampage, but I was still uneasy about it.
Even if we have such anxiety in our hearts, will we be awakened? Something like that. We are loved. In order not to lose to any enemy, we must use all means at our disposal, right? Well, I'll be sure to respond in anticipation of showing it to you. Without having to make my words very clear, Benimaru already understood my thoughts, and even made a bold promise that he would never storm out. Really reliable. I trust you. Look at me. That's exactly when Shuna's speech ended. So, I gave the reward right away. Benimaru. This battle command, it was brilliant. From this day forward, you can call yourself the Flare Lord. Yes, thank you. The ceremony begins. Even though normally casual, in front of the soldiers is a big deal. Benimaru's response to this public-private distinction was perfect. The title of Flare Lord was given to Benimaru because he had become a true demon lord but still could not claim to be a demon lord, a title that implied being a substitute. What is called wrath is intense anger. Benimaru, who was originally irritable, has now become able to keep his cool. Its essence, however, there remains the burning flames. Only now he'd switched to a quiet burn and has become able to control those rages. As a monster in the form of following me, there is no more fitting title for him than this. Notice. Use the prescribed amount of 100,000 souls to help the individual named Benimaru to evolve? Yes/no yes. At the same time, a soul corridor was formed between me and Benimaru. Not something as thin as it used to be, but a clear and solid connection formed. 100,000 souls flowed to Benimaru through this connection. At the same time, the evolution of the Benimaru began, and it did not. No change. It failed? When I thought so, Benimaru replied with a puzzled expression. It seems that my evolution requires another condition. How so? No, it's not Lord Raimaru's business, it seems I'm the one who's the problem. For some reason, Benimaru became ambiguous. It always feels suspicious. What kind of an answer is that? I whispered a question to Benimaru and got a surprising answer. Actually, I just heard the voice of the world. It's as if I can evolve from a Kijin to a demigod, but after that evolution it seems I won't be able to have any more children. According to Benimaru, after becoming a demigod, there is no longer a limit to life expectancy, so there is no need to have children. Well, that's right. Monsters were already a fairly long-lived race, and if it was its superior race, there was nothing incredible about it indeed losing its life limit. In other words, the so-called spirits and Kijins are mostly a kind of spiritual beings. The demon race doesn't seem to be able to have children either, which is probably some sort of destiny for the life-limiting race. After all, you can come back to life even when you're dead, so it's no longer relevant for population continuity or anything. So, what's the problem? Sadly, I can't have children either, but it didn't cause any inconvenience, so I didn't see it as a problem of any kind. It seems that I still have a soft spot for the identity of the great ogre clan. Even I forgot myself. It seems like I can't do my job as patriarch without doing it properly. The so-called job is that you can't evolve without having children. Well, it seems that it is necessary to leave children and grandchildren behind. Benimaru glared at me again. The ceremony is still going on. Is that a good look? The participants thought I was congratulating Benimaru and that if I didn't figure it out soon, something was going to go wrong. A little anxious, I took a look at Benimaru's face, and as a result, Benimaru looked around again with an embarrassed look on his face. This kind of Benimaru is really rare. He usually always has an unruly attitude. Now his appearance is even more emotionally appealing. Make up your mind, Benimaru. No, so what? I ignored the Benimaru that wanted to argue and raised the volume especially. So, as a reward, do you wish me to allow you to marry? So, who is the target? Wait, Lord Raimaru. It's time to show your manhood. It's none of my business. I'm hanging myself up high. With such a pavement, Benimaru couldn't make up his mind. To get the late-blooming Benimaru to act, not being rough doesn't work. This action, which has the potential to result in a damage blow to the owner. Huh? To my query, the King of Wisdom made no answer. No, I don't mind. I said this to myself inwardly, and at this point a loud cheer rang out from inside the fighting arena. Everyone heard what I said and understood the meaning of the words. Brother, you finally made up your mind. Shuna smiled brightly. Young master, who are you going to name? Hakuru put his hand on the hilt of the knife as he asked. Before Benimaru could answer the question, Mamaji and Albis from the guest gallery stood up. Your Majesty Raimaru. Allow me to speak. Can I do the same? Like Lady Mamaji, I have something to ask His Majesty. The two women's pressing power really isn't covered. I can't afford to say more. I know. So, you two can come over here, right? At the ceremony, it wasn't supposed to be the occasion to say such a thing, but the guys inside the arena have all turned into spectators waiting for a good show. So no one is complaining, rather, it feels like they'd be more upset if they interrupted now. The two came forward and I gave them permission to speak. Your Highness, as a reward for this, I hope you will allow me to marry Lord Benimaru. Mamaji was the first to put such an extremely bold request out of her mouth. Moreover, Hakuru followed close behind. Lord Raimaru, the reward shall be that which is given. This one understands that taking the initiative to ask for a reward is not in line with the rules. But I'd like you to listen to my daughter's request. For this request, Hakuru was willing to cede his martial arts honor to Mamaji. The way things are going, it's going to be hard for me to say no to this father-daughter pair. Benimaru, who couldn't keep up with the situation, was still in petrification, and his high judgment had obviously always been highly regarded, but it seemed that this guy's head hadn't even been working up to now. Then the statements that made the situation even more confusing came up. Your Majesty, allow me to be the second wife of Lord Benimaru. Slowing Mamaji to a beat, Albis uttered such words. Benimaru and I couldn't help but use her. At the same time we responded to her. Mamaji and Albis' increasingly intense offense and defense around Benimaru, a situation that seems to be known as free-fighting romanticism, has become a well-known topic. That is, have the two already split the spoils before we know it? So, that means Mamaji as First Lady and Albis as Second Lady. Yes. Exactly. Mamaji and Albis replied with a happy face. Benimaru had rolled his eyes. While it is not known what happened between the two, a clear sequence seems to have been generated. It's unbecoming of a wife to let Lord Benimaru worry about such things. Albis and I will not ask Lord Benimaru to choose one of us, please marry both of us. Wait, this can't be.
It's okay.
I've agreed with Lady Mamaji, with Lord Benimaru's talent, there will be no problem, that's our conclusion. No, 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 how on earth did you come to that conclusion? Benimaru looked at me with a pleading look. Well, I'm not sure it's that easy to help. Notice. According to the current rules of the Jura Tempest Federation, one of them is polygamy may be permitted if it is for the purpose of leaving children and grandchildren. But only to the survivors who wish to bear children. So in this case, it's impossible to endorse the second lady. Ooh. There is indeed such a thing. Although a little concerned about why the King of Wisdom would be so active in providing assistance, this way Benimaru would be saved. I'm sorry, Miss Albies. In our country, only survivors who wish to have children can be second ladies. In the future I intend to make better laws, and by then these rules may still be changed, so I can't give you permission yet. I was ready to reject Albies' request with an apologetic tone, and Benimaru nodded with a relieved expression on his face, but we who thought this topic would stop there were mistaken. Don't worry. The rules for this, I looked into carefully beforehand. Actually, I just got married a little while ago. Hey, did you get married not too long ago? With whom? That said, wouldn't it be even more impossible for you to marry Benimaru? What Albies said next, however, went far beyond my expectations. And yet experienced a sad state of affairs with the death of my husband. Therefore, I have now fulfilled the conditions to become Lord Benimaru's second wife. Huh? Give me a minute, that wouldn't be because of the war, would it? If that were the case, it would be a big problem, but Albies' next sly explanation made me feel so stupid that I felt so worried about myself. Wait. So, who is that husband who married you? That's Fobio over there in the guest gallery. Albies told me with a smile. So, Mr. Fobio, it looks like you're still alive? Benimaru and I looked at each other in confusion. What's going on? I don't know if you ask me. And so it is. It didn't even take thoughts to convey, and the two of us were able to complete the conversation just by sight. Fobio came to us and knelt down with a very guilty look on his face. I'm really, really sorry. My Albies, who speaks in such a self-righteous way. No. You're married? More importantly, what's the deal with death? About that. And then the fodder began to break. Mummaji, Albies, and Fobio, after listening to these three's explanations, I finally got a general idea of Albies' plan. In short, after several fistfights, a certain friendship develops between Mummaji and Albies. So the two changed the general direction of things from competing with each other to assisting each other. What should we do if we want the two of us to marry Benimaru together? The answer to this question, after much trouble, is that Albies married Fobio first. After the marriage, the two went to a duel in the labyrinth, with the condition of victory until one of them died in battle, and Albies won the title of survivor. Since the duel took place in the labyrinth, Fobio certainly survived in the end. And on one condition, if I win, then really marry me. So, can I cry? Is that the reason Fobio was willing to join the program? The drooping panther looked so pathetic that even I couldn't help but begin to pity him. So, what should we do if things turn out this way?
Rigid, is it okay to do this?
Yes. It's really a simple and straightforward theory of power. To get what is wanted, to make all wisdom and strength to pursue the results. If you ask me, it's totally fine to have it. I see. To what Rigid said, the three of them, Rigurd, Rogid, and Rugged, also nodded in unison. Seriously. In the eyes of magical creatures, Albies' approach really works. Brother. Both Lady Mummaji and Lady Albies have shown themselves to such a degree of enlightenment. Please behave like a man and answer people properly. Shuna is also a proponent of the Albies initiative. No, it's not just Shuna. If you hate it, you hate it, and if you're troubled, isn't that what you're saying? What's there to worry about? Shion doesn't seem to have thought much about it at all, but makes a fairly correct argument. However, She didn't seem to object to Benimaru marrying both of them at the same time, and saying so was simply an attempt to urge. Surprisingly, there were no objections. What ethics, what impurity, seems there's no one to have such feelings. Indeed, when you think about it, the rule of magical creatures is of the weak and the strong. The strong can get their hands on everything, and the rules I've laid down will keep them in check at best. If I want it to be so, and no one expresses displeasure, then it doesn't matter even if I agree. Benimaru, how long do you want to worry? If you act so indecisive, you'll be laughed at by your father in that world. Sue, don't say such things. So I expect to be like my father too, what's wrong with that? Was it the feeling that Sue's words were harsh? Benimaru rarely got excited. However, the Sue remained indifferent. I don't want to make it sound too hard. It looks like you're doubting your love, but isn't all you really have to do is have kids? It is impossible for a man and a woman to have children if they do not care for the other. If you don't have an idea about the two of them, just say no in the first place. But if you're more or less interested in both of them, wouldn't it be just fine to have sex with them and bear fruit? Mr. Sue, you are also too direct. It was hateful that the words, which were clearly shockingly sexual harassment, were uttered by Sue, and yet they made people feel cool. Monsters seem to be able to accept that as well. I'd forgotten that couples can't have children if they do not care for each other. What's bothering Benimaru is probably that it's dishonest to love two people at the same time or something. Also, if he chooses one himself, the other person who loses will be miserable. It was because of this that he kept dragging his answers back. I don't hate it when you think like that. But on this occasion now, wouldn't it be better to rely on the results to solve all the problems, as Sue had said? Miss Albies, let's see who will bear Lord Benimaru's child first, and let's fight it out. I won't lose, Lady Mummagy. My love is the real deal, and the rest is just enough to make Lord Benimaru fall in love with me. This was supposed to be the most troublesome part, but the girls didn't seem to be bothered by it. That being the case, it was only a matter of Benimaru's expression. Benimaru, it's a celebration, and it's still the part that honors your achievements, so whatever capricious statement you have I will allow you to make, just say what you mean. Which side do you choose for Mummagy and Albie's courtship, accept or reject? If Benimaru doesn't want to, that's the end of the conversation. But if it is not so, Mummagy, Albies, I may not be able to stay by your side forever, as Lord Rimuru guardian. Even so, are you still willing to choose me? Sure enough, Benimaru was honest no matter what. He seemed to have even thought about the future situation. After resolving this attachment of leaving a son behind, Benimaru evolves into a demigod. And when he becomes the kind of existence that has no lifespan limit, there will come a time when he will be forever separated from Mummagy and Albies. Right. Because only he evolved himself, then he must have to live longer than his two wives. To rush an answer in such a scene is too much. Me too, nothing real yet, but I think it would be painful if a loved one passed away before themselves. But then again, I'm not talking about a specific person, but all of my peers. I can understand what's bothering Benimaru. Mummagy and Albie's moods may have wavered, but looking at the results shows that I'm completely paranoid. No problem at all. After raising my children, I'll also try to evolve myself. I feel the same way. Even if you can't evolve, my children will be able to take care of your worries. Women are so strong. Mummagy and Albies unflinchingly showed their awareness. Hearing these responses, Benimaru revealed a valiant smile. Lord Rimuru, I want to marry them both. Will you allow me? That being said, I can't say no to that, and I didn't mean to. Although this time it sets a precedent of using ploys to forcefully bend the rules, as long as one has to exchange permission for achievements like this one, it might instead give many people hope of becoming more diligent. Forget it and leave it at that, I'll make that judgment. Although Benimaru is hardcore, he is a pure lover. If you leave him alone, God knows how long he would be single. I think this is a good opportunity. To put it mildly, Do you really love Mummaji and Albies at the same time? That's the point, but I'm sure Benimaru will be able to get over the hump. Add some gas for him, by the way. I jumped out of my chair and changed into human form. Then it was announced loudly. Permission granted. In my name, acknowledge Benimaru and Mummaji, and the knotted soul of Albies. For magical creatures, so-called marriage is something like souls joining to each other. So the statement that you can't have children without love is indeed an unmistakable fact. It is for this reason that the act is appropriate for the term spirit knot. Hearing my proclamation, the corners of Benimaru's mouth showed a smile, his expression tinted with joy, and his face turned red, but he still raised his chest and stretched out his arms to take Mummaji and Albies into his arms. Thank you very much. I will love both of them well and show everyone how sincere I am. Hearing Benimaru say so, Mummaji and Albies both had tears in their eyes with happiness, a look of emotion that could not be uttered without words. Honestly, I'm so envious of Benimaru. Being married to a beautiful girl and a beautiful woman at the same time is a real handful. Count, I'm not qualified to say anything about anyone else. Since I don't have a gender, there's nothing I can do about it. Benimaru's words caused a loud cheer to erupt from inside the arena. Shuna happily sent her blessings to her brother, and for some reason, Shion kept applauding with a proud expression on her face. Of course, there are not only blessings in the cheers, but also words like "I'm so jealous," "I hate you so much," but that's a blessing. Just like that, surrounded by the solidarity of the participants of the celebration ceremony, Mummaji, Albies and Benimaru became husband and wife. As much as it's tempting to just go ahead and celebrate them, the ceremony is still going on, and I want to make it a priority to complete the evolutionary ritual. Let's get the word out now and wait until the evolutionary ceremony in the name of the celebration is over, and then make it good for a Benimaru wedding. We were going to have a banquet today, and it would have been more fun to celebrate more. Anyway, let's get the celebration going first. After letting a blissful face of Benimaru retire them, I ordered Shuna to prepare. The cheers, which continued unabated, finally subsided when I raised my hand. What an unexpected surprise. In the corner of the line of sight is found the weeping of others, and Phobio, who somehow goes up to comfort, but now that time is precious, let's continue to carry the ceremony forward. I morphed into a slime again and sat back in my chair. After that, the voice of Shuna's majestic voice rang out in the venue, which was still in a state of excitement. 3 army chiefs, move forward. The so-called 3 army chiefs, the officers of the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Corps, that is, the 3 of Gobta, Geld, and Gable, all of whom are now kneeling before me. Let's start with the hobgoblin. Ahem. Gobta-kun. You, no reward. I let out such words to Gobta, who was looking at this side with a look of expectation. Hey! That's too much. So, why did you call me here, Fizz? Good question. You don't have a reward, but in lieu of that, I think I can give you a right. Right? Even if given a soul, Gobta would not evolve. Although this kid can be described as a result of his talent, but there is nothing that can be done about it. I thought about giving him weapons or defensive gear, but I don't think Gobta would be able to use it even if he got something more powerful than what he has now. Besides, this guy is able to play Magic Wolf with Ranga, so he doesn't need any equipment. Given money, this kid certainly wouldn't use it for serious business. What's more, the army chief is supposed to be a highly paid position. Money for money translates into a good number of points per month, so life on the hobgoblin should be pretty easy. Usually, in human countries, there are presumably territorial awards and the like, but we have no territory that can be ceded. Also, the hobgoblins are not estimated to be able to do the business of ruling the territory, so such rewards are meaningless. That's why it occurred to me that I could reward Gobta with some sort of special privilege. Gobta looked puzzled at my words. Speaking of rights alone, he probably couldn't understand what was going on. Then, I'll just tell him the answer. That is, You're right to be with me in the same casual tone as you have always been with me. I flashed a bad smile at the puzzled hobgoblin and made this declaration. Before Gobta had a chance to comprehend my words, the meeting hall erupted into a cheer that was even louder than Benimaru's at that moment just now. Rather, it should have been a roar. It's all loud voices that don't hide their jealousy. Even Shion and Shuna stared at Gobta with terrifying stares. They seemed particularly envious. So, is it true? After all, you guys can't even say a word of respect, can you? It's better to take this opportunity to acknowledge that you have the right to do so than to fail for such reasons in the future. While one can feel the reverence, the tone of the wording doesn't work at all. That's the kind of guy Gobta is. I usually tell people to feel free to talk to me, but it's hard for them to do so. Quite a few of them seem to complain regularly about the overly ordinary way of talking like Gobta. Considering the external face, wanted to ask me to think of something like this. If it's going to be a problem, just recognize it as a right of the hobgoblin. The foreign guests, Phobio and Granny Jane, were also present, and at this time it was specially advertised that the Gobta problem would be solved. Well, while there are all sorts of troublesome issues like decency and authority, we are magical creatures and don't need too rigid a system. I have my standards of conduct. It's not the surface that matters, it's the inside. Gobta is a good example. It was spoken in that tone, but his loyalty was genuine. Just look him in the eye and you'll see. I could see in his eyes that Gobta didn't care if he died as long as it was for me. That's why I gave him this right. Many thanks, thank you very much. The smiling Gobta gave me a 90-degree bow of thanks. Very happy. Presumably, Gobta had been adjusting his tone of voice. But absolutely nothing works just fine. The reward seemed better than anything to the hobgoblin, and I was happy. It's kind of hard to prepare the right rewards. Well, after Gobta is Geld. Geld, from this day forward you will call yourself the Barrier Lord. I, Geld, accept this title. I will not disrespect the name of the Barrier Lord and improve. Geld responded forcefully. To great cheers, I secretly told Geld the behind-the-scenes details. Like Benimaru, I'm going to try an evolutionary ritual on you too. What the hell is that? Since it was too much trouble to explain it again every time, I connected all the people who were going to give souls to them with a thought transmission and explained the evolution ceremony to everyone. I didn't forget to use Thinking Accelerator during this time. In this way, important conversations can be completed in less than a few seconds of real time. It was only after my note had ended that Geld opened his mouth to respond. Much appreciated, but I think there is someone better suited to this reward than I. In this battle, Lady Carrera, who is the controller, gets more credit. Since she too is qualified, be sure to give this opportunity to Her Excellency Carrera, not to me. Aha, he's trying to get away with relying on the soul power to awaken? I didn't plan on letting Carrera evolve this time. She's undoubtedly done a great job, but she's dangerous enough now that it would bother me for her to get more power and storm out. Because I had to watch the situation first, I chose to advance the old subordinate that I could trust with peace of mind. Hearing this explanation from me, Geld was still a bit confused. But, by the way, Geld had his share of uneasiness. After getting the power, you will not storm out. Also, there's atonement in this, right? Because of the stormy departure of the Orc clan at that time, the great forest of Jura suffered quite a disaster. As the one responsible for that event, one must be strict with oneself. Geld looked at me with that look of strong will, full of determination. That's why I answered him like that. Don't worry, Geld. Even though Geld, the Orc disaster king, had stormed out, it was all for his companions, right? Geld is not going to storm out. As long as there was such an enlightenment, no matter what kind of power he should be able to control. And there is no longer anyone who will denigrate Geld for what he did in the past. Although you still hold a sense of responsibility for what happened then, I believe in such a. If it were you, you'd be able to use your new power to protect everyone. If Geld had evolved, his minions would have been blessed. In other words, our country will be more solidly guarded. Hearing this clarification from me, the glow in Geld's eyes grew stronger. In that case, I will accept your kindness. Then promised me. This is Geld, a man who does not exert his strength for himself but for his fellow men. By the way, no one other than Geld has rejected evolution. Some people, though uneasy, are more expectant. It's not good to not consult with them beforehand, but it's important that things like this go with the flow. I was also relieved to hear that everyone was willing. I will continue with the ceremony after I have lifted the thought transmission. You've done a great job, and as a reward, I'll give you this. After saying that, I signaled to Shuna. Shuna smiled and nodded, handing the pre-prepared outfit to Geld. The armor and shield are legendary equipment seized during this battle, and are still something that was personally modified by me after discussing it with Garm. After the equipment reacted to Geld's monster aura, it became a dedicated equipment that only he could use. The principle is the same as armed with the Holy Spirit, a precious commodity that not even Garm can reproduce. What's special about the mythic and legendary levels is the maturity of the equipment itself, that is, the existence of something of similar rank, which evolves after a long period of time. Although the forms of evolution vary widely, depending on the material, a certain number of years must be met. But if the user is excellent, the speed of evolution also seems to go up several levels. Geld's ability was defensive specialization, and even if it was only legendary-grade equipment, it was estimated that the defensive power could even be raised to a level that rivaled mythical-grade equipment. Not only that, but according to the King of Wisdom, there is a high probability that Geld will be blessed with this evolution. Since this is the case, then I think that Geld must be able to reach the mythic level. In this way, his defense must have gone up several levels. Geld respectfully accepted the reward and then gave me a bow. Notice: use the prescribed amount of 100,000 souls to help the individual named Geld to evolve? Yes/no yes. After reading that, I commanded Geld again. It's been hard on you. This is a good opportunity, just picture in your mind the posture you expect and rest well. More than just fighting, it's going to take an active performance in urban construction in the future, but so far he's always working and rarely gets a good rest. He's probably the hardest working one of us, isn't he? It's a rare opportunity and I hope he gets a good rest. Yes. Thank you very much. After answering, Geld showed a very happy smile. Then, as if resisting the side effect of evolving into a demon lord, the dormancy of evolution, Geld returned to the queue with a bemused attitude. Good thing Geld could hold back that sleepiness. With that sentiment, I turned my attention to the next person. Gable. He led the third corps and fought a beautiful air battle. Hearing my words of comfort, Gable bowed his head with a sincere face. Not yet. Under my generation's command, there were many injuries. I'm ashamed of my own incompetence. If truth be told, Gable has done it to himself this time. The idea of doing magic endurance training at the height of battle is too much for anyone to imitate. Or rather, it's not that imitation doesn't come, it's that there's no way to imitate at all. I didn't get a detailed report on the whole thing from Ultima until after the war. The level of idiocy of this guy is beyond words. I wish I could give Mr. Gable a punishment. Ultima has even advised me so. When on earth did he become such an experimentalist? However, it was also because of those experiments that the secret of the dragon warriorization, an inherent skill of the dragon people of Gable, was unlocked. This time, let's be a little more self-respectful and not be so fierce as to reprimand him on the spot. Besides, there are more important things now. I switched again to thought communication and spoke to Gable. Scolding him in front of everyone would be counterproductive, so this is a personal line. I'll talk to you in detail about experimenting in the war later. And Ultima has a proposal. She seems to be willing to teach you how to control mana. What did you say? It is said that the demon race can control mana as easily as breathing. Since she is willing to look after you, go to her and ask her for advice. If it's up to me to give the punishment, it might just make Gable feel happy, and for their sake, it's better to let Ultima train him hard. It's nothing. Ultima must have known to be lenient and let them suffer a little before they could reflect on themselves. Out of that thought I handed down this ruling. My generation is not mature enough. I, Gable, can't thank you enough for wanting to give such a generation the opportunity to grow further. I will do my best to respond to Lord Raimuru's expectations, so that all of us will be able to use the dragon warriorization freely. I thought Gable would be reluctant, but he got an unexpectedly positive response. He seemed to have come to his senses long ago. Come to think of it, Gable's loss to Gobta because he got carried away is already a nostalgic memory. The once flippant character has now become much more subdued. Not only can you see the atmosphere around you, but you are also gaining the majesty of a general who has been through hundreds of battles. As he himself had said, there were still a lot of shortcomings, but this guy was originally well qualified, and had learned what it meant to be thoughtful after suffering a painful defeat and interacting with the orcs. He has now become very reliable. Through accumulated experience, Gable has grown. Because of this, I believe that the power can be entrusted to him. The power is given to you, use it to your advantage and awaken as the Dragon Lord. I gave the souls to Gable to help him awaken to evolution. Unlike Geld, Gable's evolution was drastic. The black-purple scales turned russet, as if the burning magical essence was swimming through Gable's body. However, Gable brilliantly put up with it all. He maintained his consciousness by relying on his chi and controlled the storms. It seems that his experiment was not in vain and did bear fruit. Oh. It's expanding, the force is expanding. Thank you very much, Lord Raimuru. From now on, we will call ourselves the Dragon Lords. From now on, I will use this power for Lord Raimuru and this country. Gable's body radiated purple electricity that toasted his body, but then instantly began to heal itself, eventually turning into a much stronger flesh. It seems to have worked. Is it because I said he could have the title of Lord? Gable's forehead grew beautiful horns. This look was both handsome and suited him well, and would even make one think that Gable was actually so arrogant. But that's just fine. It is a remarkable evolution of both majesty and power. And so Gable, the Dragon Lord, was born. That said, the evolution towards the true Demon Lord seems to be different for each individual. While I was in an irresistible deep sleep, Geld seemed to be able to resist it, and Benimaru was required to meet certain conditions. And Gable didn't need sleep at all, it was all over in a flash. Lord Gable, my strength has expanded. Exactly. So am I, Lord Gable. Such a voice came from the corner of the third core formation. The voice came from 100 flying dragons. The members of the Cyan Legion, the Lizardman clan, seemed to have received their own blessings, and all 3,000 of them had actually evolved into the Dragon Clan. The flying dragons have beautifully crossed the A-level wall and gained the fighting ability of a median monster. It has now become normalized to unleash the dragon warriorization, so the ability itself has disappeared. The dragon scaling skill that made the skin deteriorate into dragon scales seemed to be gone as well, but in exchange, they gained a new skill called dragon scaling armorization. As for how to control the power, I'll leave it to Ultima to tune them up after that. The problem was that newly acquired skill: absorb the magical elements around you, covering the body with armor that can repair itself. Although the principle is the same as that of body armor, the latter's high defensive power is completely incomparable. Minor damage can regenerate itself, and without the need for other protective gear, dragon scale armorization is really an affordable ability. Also, the effect of this skill varies from person to person, which means that it increases the strength of the armor in proportion to the user's own strength, etc. Like Gable's dragon scale armorization, the defense strength actually soared to a level close to mythic level, which really surprised me. Of course, that kind of completeness on defense is also reflected in the physical attack. Although the race was still the dragon people, its strength had increased so much that it was not too much to say it was another species. Although in the end it's impossible to humanize it, it's a matter of personal will, so whatever works, and then there are a few people who can't be forgotten. Surprisingly, even the 5 of them, Soka and the others, had been affected by the Gable evolution. This group is the Draconians who remain humanoid. Since it's still human, the defense is a little worse, but the speed and attack power is greatly increased. The holding skill is still Dragon Warrior transformation, but the transformed look has many human elements, which is a completely different style from Gable's. The dragon scales and wings seem to be able to be retracted and put away freely, and the transformation into a dragon-like pose with a wizard-like appearance. Soka and Gable were obviously of the same race, but the Soka group seemed to have taken a completely different evolutionary path. It feels like if they continue to evolve this way, there'll probably be another race next time. In terms of strength, the Soka 5 are more powerful than the flying dragons. Each of them had been strengthened to the extent that they could be called superior monsters, and Soka even harbored an amount of magical element that rivaled that of superior demon generals. As expected, the success has strengthened the battle force considerably.
Okay, now let the 3 army chiefs retire first and call the others up.
Ranga, Hakuru, Testarossa, Ultima, Carrera, come forward. One can't forget Ranga and Hakuru, who served as the advisor at the mention of Gobta. There is also the trio of demonesses that I appointed as intelligence marshals and ombudsmen. Ranga answered the call and silently emerged from my shadow. Hakuru also eliminated the breath that appeared. Testarossa elegantly, Ultima breezily, and Carrera majestically, everyone came to the podium and knelt before me. When everyone arrived, it was time to give them their rewards in order. First, Ranga. He assisted Gobta very hard. Ranga, you not only fought with Gobta, but you protected him well, and I thank you. What a word you are, my lord. It's all taken for granted for me. Ha ha ha, cute guy. However, I was well aware that Ranga was happy about getting a reward from me. After all, his tail hadn't stopped wagging, so, from today on, you can call yourself the Star Lord. Yes, sir. Ranga responded with a growl. During this time, a soul corridor was established between him and me. Like me at the time, Ranga immediately began to evolve, and the harvest sacrifice that belonged to it seemed to have begun as well. Well, my lord. Do you really want to sleep? Then don't push yourself. It's not something to hold back either. Back in my shadow, Ranga fell into sleep. Judging from his appearance, the monster wolves under his command must have been blessed as well. What they will look like when they evolve seems very much to be expected. Ranga didn't storm off, just fell asleep in my shadow. That's 4 completed. It looks like there is no need to worry about it anymore, but let's tense up and carry on with the ritual. Next up is Hakuru. Thank you, Hakuru, for your excellent work as Gobta's advisor. It's nothing. Gobta has also grown, and he may soon no longer need this one's assistance. No, there's a big difference between the presence and absence of Hakuru. So, as far as rewards are concerned. Just a moment, please, Lord Raimuru. You have just fulfilled the request of little Mamaji, and that is enough for me. Ah, so you say, Hakuru said something like that just now. However, I couldn't really just do what Hakuru said. 2 different things. I also wish Benimaru and Mamaji happiness. Besides, even Albies broke in at the end. You're in a complicated mood as a father, aren't you? I set up the thought communication again and talked to Hakuru. It's a valuable skill to be able to communicate your thoughts in front of a large group of people who don't even need to worry about time. That is a point. But this one has always believed in the young master and trusted Lord Benimaru. Besides, my daughter is equally discerning. In that case, I'm satisfied. That's great. I'm sure Benimaru will give them happiness. However, whether or not the two end up having children is a matter for only God to know. So, wait a minute. It's important to reward merit, right? Besides, the prize for you is the one I asked Kurobi to create. Even if it's just to keep Kurobi from getting busy, I want you to take this. That's right, I've prepared a newly built knife for Hakuru. Kurobi's craft has been getting better and better lately. Therefore, his delightful work was really powerful, and it was a first-class item comparable to a legendary-grade weapon. By the way, Benimaru's Red Lotus was also given to Kurobi to be rebuilt. In previous battles, Benimaru was unable to make a true feat because of the poor performance of his weapon. Kurobi, who had heard about it, struggled as if he was blaming himself. To be sure to recreate a knife of the finest quality, after so demonstrating his determination, until now he had shut himself up in the workshop to try. Although it wasn't quite as fond as Red Lotus, Kurobi had put his heart and soul into this sword, so I'm sure he would like it. So, Kurobi in that case, I'll take it with gratitude. Oh, you're welcome to take it. Great, great. I was also troubled as to what to do if Hakuru refused to accept. While humility is a virtue, I always feel like everyone is a little too polite. All right, go ahead. Don't care. This is a special knife for you, so take it. Indeed, Lord Raimuru must not be allowed to care in vain. Then I, Hakuru, accept this sword. With that, the knife was handed over smoothly to Hakuru. Next it was the turn of the demon women's trio. In fact, at first, it bothered me what to do with a few of them. If only to consider the enhancement of war power, it would be the right thing to let the 3 demon females evolve. But as I said to Benimaru and Geld, this evolution belongs to temptation. The lack of souls is also a reason, and more importantly, I am troubled by the question of being able to harness them well after evolution. Since we don't know how strong these 3 can become, we'll keep them for now this time. The 3 of them are on the same level as Diablo, so I wanted to try and get Diablo to evolve first and see what happens. The Diablo side, in another sense, gives me great unease. Forget it, it's better not to think too much about it. According to my observation, Diablo gives the impression of being a head taller than these 3 women. Even as a primordial, this guy's personality seems particularly strong. The trio of demonesses were handed over to Diablo to manage as my immediate subordinates. In that case, it was better to let the 3 of them evolve after Diablo had finished evolving. However, the souls I collected this time are not enough to help them evolve. There seems to be some sort of check and balance formed between the 3 guys, so they can't be allowed to create the question of who is better or worse. If I had to say it, it would be too dangerous. If the 3 women are not allowed to evolve simultaneously, they will clash. It wasn't as if Geld had made the suggestion earlier, nor had he thought of letting Carrera advance alone, and the reason why he had stopped was for that reason. Besides, just looking at the amount of mana, Carrera was already above Diablo. To give her more power in this situation, I think it was a gamble that was too dangerous. Uncontrollable forces will destroy themselves, there is such a feeling. For example, the nuclear strike spell that Carrera used, Gravity Collapse, really didn't work. If that one trick had failed, even the Geldites would have been blown away. Although Carrera is in complete control of Gravity Collapse, the fact that she doesn't hesitate to use this magic on such occasions is also a bit unsettling. No matter what, it's important to confirm safety. It is better to let them not evolve based on their future performance. Testarossa, Ultima, Carrera. All 3 of you have produced very good results as intelligence officers. The souls that you have collected, I have put to effective use. These are clearly things you have collected and not used on you, and to do so may displease you. I wanted to keep quiet about the evolution, but most of the souls used this time were collected by the 3 of them. It was so rude to say nothing that I made myself clear, but what I had to say was interrupted by a retort. What do you mean, Lord Raimuru? What a grievance, how could we have that thought? Yeah. Let's just say the three of us don't think it's enough to repay your kindness. They are both right, my lord. We are content, not only with the flesh, but even with the name. Just that's enough, we've gotten stronger. The trio collectively stated that they had no grievances. Indeed, they are now overpowered. Even just maintaining their current intensity, they were more powerful than the awakened Gable. Hearing them say that, it did seem to me that that was indeed the case. But giving or not giving rewards is a different matter. I am happy to hear you say so, and my heart is with you at all times. It is for this reason that I hope you will accept the reward I have for you. You mean, a reward? But there's no way out of this. If the Lord has said so, then you can't refuse, right? It would be a pain in the ass if they refused, so they had to block their way back first. According to your merit this time, from now on I recognize you as part of the patrons. Just keep doing your old work in the ordinary time, and in wartime you will be given partial command. Besides, I have a title for you too. Testarossa, the Killer Lord. Ultima, the Pain Lord. Carrera, the Menace Lord. This is the title I came up with after sending a few people to do an inquiring survey. The names all sound pretty brutal, but what they reflect is what they have done in this war. As subordinates, they specialize in war-related matters, and I think this arrangement may be unexpectedly well suited to them. From this day forward, you are permitted to call yourselves by these names. I look forward to your active performance in the future, just like my senior subordinates. As you wish. Hearing my words, the three girls all bowed their heads in thanks. They seemed to like the new title. I thought to myself how nice it was that no one protested and watched the five of them return to the queue. The evolutionary ritual advances with such a feeling all the way through. Next to be called to the stage were the minions who were active in the maze. Gozu and Mezu were awarded a new set of gear. Jadora was officially appointed as the 60th level's class guardian, and the floor guardian Colossus statue was handed over to him. From now on, Beretta stepped down from his position as chief of the 10 Lords of the Labyrinth. In other words, Jadora has officially become one of the Labyrinth Lords. In addition, I also gave him permission to enter and exit the research facilities of all walks of life as a reward, and the old man will join the research team in the future anyway. Taking this as an opportunity, I began to choose to trust him. Jadora is very happy about this, and it seems that I was right to give this reward. If he steals research data, let's talk about it then. However, there was always the feeling that there was no need to worry about that. That old man is the type to hate and later be expected to work well for us as a companion. All in all, it's been going well so far. So, let's get down to business. The 4 Dragon Kings, and Beretta who retired from the 10, are not my men, they belong to Ramirez, so they will be placed first. 90th levels of Floor Guardians, the 9-headed beast 9-tailed Kumara. Zijin, the Bug Emperor, the guardian of the 80th level of the hierarchy. Apito, the Bug Queen of the 79 levels, the guardians of the realm. Adalman, the Immortal King, the guardian of the 70 levels of the hierarchy. The 70-tiered front guard, the paladin of the dead Albert. Here come a bunch of awesome guys. At this point in the ritual, I feel like I no longer have to worry about anyone storming out. Still, it's better to come alone. First up is the 9-tailed Kumara. I gave her the title of Chimeric Lord. Was it because of the outstandingly accomplished revenge in this battle that Kumara also looked a bit more majestic? Thinking about it, she was still an enemy when I first met her. One never knows what kind of turnaround is hidden somewhere in the world. Kumara was manipulated by Clayman at the time, and Colonel Kansas, the culprit behind the phenomenon, has been knocked down, and her transformation now is something I am both happy and proud of. The reason why I put her in the labyrinth was also because Ranga told me that she was good at pioneering the forest and suggested that she be the class guardian of the 90th levels, so I gave permission. Without that suggestion, Kumara might still be a small fox to this day. Although I knew that she was a young beast of the powerful race, I never thought that she could reach the level of being called a labyrinth lord. No, from the moment I named her, Kumara may have been destined for this fate. I'm grateful for Ranga's offer. Nowadays, Kumara had become the master of the 8 demonic beasts. The strength of each of these magical beasts that served as guardians of the 82nd to 89th realms was equivalent to that of the calamity level. They're the 8 sects of the 9-tailed Kumara. Actually, I have an impression of these 8 guys too. After a few days had passed since I first named Kumara, I took the opportunity to go over and check on her condition while walking. It was then that Kumara asked me to call out the names of these friends of hers. I was introduced to a group of monsters that looked very cute and young. I have had countless failures in naming magical creatures, and it is because of this that I can understand how dangerous the naming thing is. However, that time it was just a matter of calling the name of the tail beast that the 9-tailed Kumara had told me once, so I easily agreed out of the idea of it doesn't matter, does it? Of course, I said yes to a request from a young girl or something. There's no such thing as an unseemly thought, and everyone understands it even if it's not explained carefully. I didn't expect that it would turn out like this. In retrospect, I doubt that was actually a naming of sorts. After all, the 8-tailed beasts introduced to me at that time were all high in fighting power to the point where they are now. Answer: yes. Strictly speaking, it may be different, but a similar phenomenon to naming can be identified. As a result, the bond between the tail beasts and the individual named Kumara has been strengthened. Yes. Since they didn't turn into low activity, the tails didn't notice any change at the time, so I didn't realize it until I saw the sight of them fighting, and it occurred to me that that might be the case. Those lovely magical beasts have now become the 8 monsters that contain the fierce power. What an amazing back and forth of cause and effect. No matter who was surprised, I was the one who was the most surprised. In fact, it's the equivalent of 9 names that Kumara got from me. Also, as a result, the ties between the 8 tail beasts and Kumara were strengthened. Then, when the power of the tail beast's growth after absorbing the dense monster aura returned to Kumara, it displayed that kind of powerful combined strength. Forget it, it's no use thinking about what's done. If it hadn't done that, there was a chance that Kumara would have lost this time, so let's take the result to mean everything. I give the souls to Kumara. Just after giving, Kumara had successfully evolved and awakened. The 8 beasts in the back also returned to her with a glow. Next, Kumara turned into a state of 9 tails. Except for the one that was originally there, which was golden yellow, the remaining 8 tails all glowed with a white-silver glow. These furry tails are very pretty. But even more beautiful was the beauty of Kumara herself. And she turns out to be a plump and seductive figure that was completely unimaginable as a young girl. I think she's taken her charm to a whole new level. The long, teal-brown hair that had hitherto been a golden yellow, looked like a tassel of rice reflecting the sunlight, shimmered with light and hung softly at the back. Could evolution be beauty? Alas, the amount of magicules has certainly increased considerably. The present stage alone has surpassed the awakened Gable. I didn't expect her to reach this level. The body of the 9-tailed Kumara alone already possessed considerable combat power. Of course, it wasn't until she and the full 8 beasts congregation merged into a synthetic beast form that she was able to exert her greatest strength. And on the flip side, Kumara becoming stronger meant that the 8 beasts would follow suit and become more powerful. What's more, because of being able to connect through the name souls I give, the blessings of the 9-tailed Kumara will only be given to the 8 beasts. And then the most foul point was that those given powers would again be returned to Kumara to further strengthen her. Kumara is, in a sense, exclusive to the power I gave her. Just from that beautiful appearance alone, it's really hard to imagine such a ventriloquist and masterful calculator, and the current Kumara makes me feel that way. No wonder she didn't have a good relationship with the somewhat awkward Apito. But with such a drastic evolution, Kumara certainly couldn't be without any burden. As she was now, it looked like she was doing her best just to stay conscious. If she kept going like this, she would be in danger of storming out, so she had to stop pushing herself. "Go home and rest," I gently ordered. Although Kumara looked somewhat discontented, she still obeyed my order honestly. Mostly, she would fall into a deep sleep like Ranga, taking advantage of the power that she had gained through habit. All in all, her growth makes one look forward to it. No, just now, she's already one of the most beautiful women in the world. In short, Kumara exited the venue and returned to their guarded realm. The celebration continues. Next up was Zijin and Apito. Zijin lined up behind, starting with Apito. "Apito, your earlier fight was brilliant. That man, Minute, is said to be a powerful man among the Imperial soldiers. It's true that you're strong enough to fight someone like that. You can be proud. When all is said and done, what I'm after in Apito is not power. What I hope to get from her is honey, and as long as the honey is high enough in yield and quality, I am satisfied. The fact that she has unwittingly become one of the 10 lords of the labyrinth as the Bug Queen is, in my opinion, an incredible phenomenon." "You're joking. I'm not even close. After losing all my compatriots, I was unable to draw with my opponent." No, nothing like that." I was just about to deny it, and seeing Apito's smile made me speechless again. "I didn't get a complete victory this time. As a result, I don't think I'm eligible for the award." "That's not what it says. However, if you will allow me to make my own wish, will you please board the souls of my compatriots who died in battle once more?" "What did you say?" "Just said there was no need for a reward, but then suddenly this outrageous conundrum comes up. These guys, they definitely mistook me for the super-duper guys who can do anything. How could anything like that be?" Answer: it's possible. Can you do it? Not to mention me, the King of Wisdom is really superb. Got it. Then let the spirits board you. Apito's compatriots are the ones who didn't get the resurrection bracelet. While it's doubtful that these bugs can be called ensign, that's what I'll say on such occasions. I am grateful. Although Apito is not eligible for evolution, I think she should be able to receive the blessings that come with Zijin's evolution. So, I decided to ask her what she wanted anyway. Apito looks happy now, and this should be the right thing to do. Then came Zijin. Zijin is the strongest, which is why I wanted to leave him behind, but it seems I'm worrying for nothing again. Just looking at this calm and collected state that Zijin was now in, it was impossible for him to have anything to do with storming off. He deserves to be the strongest presence in the maze. The unparalleled battle judgment that even the King of Wisdom agreed with, the amount of mana that could rival Benimaru. After taking Valdora as his teacher, he became proficient in the eccentric fighting techniques from manga. Such a Zijin is certainly strong. This war was also the one in which the other 10 lords of the labyrinth were locked in a bitter battle with the imperial powers, and he alone broke them all. Also, when everyone's an opponent, it's just an idiot to fight and lose. However, Zijin was able to easily crush his opponent, taking out all those strongmen in a few strokes. That's more than enough to show how good he is. Although it was only speculation, Zijin was more than a normal demon lord. Even I, who had awakened as the true demon lord, might have fallen into his hands. If Zijin awakens again. It was estimated that even Diablo and the few of them couldn't beat this guy, and they were really a little worried. However, that was then and this is now. I've already created several awakening demons, and to worry about this kind of thing is a complete afterthought. Now there are 5 guys who have gotten the souls and are in the middle of an evolutionary ritual. The proof is that from just now I have felt a power passing through me constantly. The harvest festival of those who fell into slumber was returned to me through the food Chang. Although it was a very large force, my body was like a tank that was short of oil, receiving all this force without any problem. It shouldn't be a problem. It's important to have a good attitude at a time like this, so don't think about it in one breath. Fear not, move forward. That's how I feel when I put my mind in order. It's better to think backwards for now. For example, think about how far Zijin can actually get stronger and such. Thinking about it that way, it becomes a lot to look forward to. Although Zijin has the possibility of surpassing even me, as long as the food Chang remains, my advantage will not be reversed. Having been convinced of this, I no longer had any qualms about starting the ritual again. You're really something. Honestly, I didn't think you'd grow this far. It's all good to be guided by Lord Rimuru. No, it was Veldora who guided you, wasn't it? Wait. The King of Wisdom has also made a lot of small moves behind my back. So, Zijin may have mistook the King of Wisdom for me. It's also a pain in the ass to correct, so just pretend I did it. No need to be modest. These are the results of your unrelenting efforts all along. Next, keep sharpening this power for me. Then I give you permission to call yourself the Mist Lord from this day forward. Yes, I'm awestruck, I'm glad. Zijin's words were still so few, but he still shuddered with emotion at my words. Even if I'm just saying that, it's probably the same as hearing the gospel in Zijin's ear. It's like having a worship filter installed, but it's nice to be admired at this level. I originally took Zijin out of the idea of protecting the rare insects, but now it's become a position of being guarded by him. Zijin's growth wasn't something I deliberately cultivated, it's just that his talents are really overblown. Add to that, the fact that Zijin lived in the dense magical aura that Veldora had leaked out, and the cultivation environment where one could die and come back to life. Also, there couldn't be a more perfect cultivation opponent that was more powerful than him. Never mind, the reasoning and all that is just a small thing. It was enough to have this result that Zijin eventually became strong. I give the souls to Zijin. Although he shuddered for a moment, Zijin immediately suppressed the torrent of power with his spirit. Unlike Gable, he really put up with it by sheer perseverance. Seeing such a great performance, I feel more and more that I have no perseverance when I wake up and fall asleep easily. Usually, it's not a problem that can be solved with courage and perseverance, but the examples of what can be done are right in front of us, and it's really impossible to refute. Zijin evolved into an extremely terrifying being. Part of the Zijin's shell, according to Zijin's will, became metamorphosable into polar metal. Coupled with the various laws that dominated, the hardness of Zijin's exoskeleton had rivaled the mythical level. In other words, his flesh is a murderous weapon in itself. If one looks only at the fight, Zijin is undisputedly the strongest. Although for spiritual beings, the strength of the fighting battle did not determine the superiority or inferiority, even so, it was undoubtedly still a very threatening strength. Zijin is still evolving and seems to have acquired all sorts of other powers. After feeling it, I'll have to go over it to find out what he's evolved into. The Harvest Festival undoubtedly took place despite Zijin's reliance on will to force a suppression. As I suspected, the object of the blessing seems to be Apito alone. The only people I've rescued with my own cells are Zijin and Apito. Because of this, for Zijin, Apito counts as his only blood relative, I guess. Although there were other dangerous species in the insect class, they suffered near total losses in this offensive and defensive battle. The lost worm can't be resurrected and can only wait for the natural birth of a new worm again. As for Apito's dependents, they too were all killed. The souls of these worms have just been transferred to Apito. At the time I wondered what she wanted this for, and now it seems to be used to strengthen herself, as evidenced by the evolution of Apito. During the ceremony, Apito likewise did not give me a pained look. That bland attitude remained intact, maintaining the majesty of the queen. Like Zijin, no less a first-class character. With admiration for these two, I told them they could return to the queue. After the celebration, Zijin and Apito returned to the labyrinth where their habitat had been turned into a cocoon, and then smoothly completed their evolution. While receiving the blessing from Zijin, Apito uses the souls of her dependents and subordinates to keep a huge amount of energy inside her body. The result was that her flesh collapsed at once, then reborn and transformed into a body that was stronger and better suited for battle. The newborn Apito used her unique skill, queen worship, which she acquired by her own power, to create insect-type monsters with the characteristics of plural insects, and she managed to get 9 of them at once. The unique skill queen worship can devour the ecological characteristics of an insect and create a monster with the corresponding characteristics. In the future, swarming groups will be formed in the insect order, culminating with these monsters. Then, Apito will be the true queen of the King's Landing bug class. Apito is both one of the 10 lords of the labyrinth and subservient to Zijin. As a result, Zijin would not be shy about pouring favor on her. In this way, an evolutionary anomaly such as this one can be explained. It's just that the blessed Apito was able to evolve so much, and one can only imagine how much Zijin himself had evolved against the sky. Even just looking at the strength of the flesh after the completion of the evolution, the amount of mana in Zijin's secret collection was enough to overpower the awakened Clayman. The main problem, however, still lies in an ability that Zijin acquired through evolution. Apito's queen cult had a destructive performance that was close to matching that of the Great Sin's skill, which was already very powerful, but Zijin's level was obviously completely different. He has acquired the real power of the ultimate skill Mephisto King of Illusion. As a disciple of Veldora, this ability was simply too good for Zijin. Having gained this power, no one could ever again shake Zijin's position as king of the maze. Apito created the insect paradise, and as the king and queen who ruled the paradise, Zijin and Apito established themselves as absolute in the maze. Well, the maze group still has a Dalman left of them. A Dalman who took me for a faith, was rather a largely eccentric character. Take, for example, Diablo's kind of eccentric. Although it was also because of this that he was able to use divine magic, so it wasn't too bad. Then again, a Dalman seems to be a close friend of Ghidorah, and the two are said to have embarked on various studies in the past. That's also why he was able to write the special skill Holy Demon Reversal, which eliminates weakness attributes. I don't particularly care about that either, maybe there's some kind of genius at it. It's an odd situation to think about when you think about it without having a brain, a device used for calculation. But if it's a magical creature, there's nothing incredible about it. Among magical beings, there are some races of astral bodies and spirits that have arithmetic loops that allow them to think even without physical bodies. What's more, there are those who can think with their mind without a brain, and there are those who have such powers. The Japanese word for a person with superpowers is psychics, so he is called that. I myself have Shion, who has acquired complete memory, by my side. The one she had was simply reproducing her memories, but as she continued to develop, she was able to use her soul and astral body to think, and became a spiritual life form free from life. In this way, almost all physical attacks would not be able to inflict fatal injuries on Shion, and even things like regeneration after losing flesh became possible. Nothing can pose a threat to her unless a special attack or a weapon of legendary level or above is used. However, Adalman was not able to reach that level, and although the king of the necromancers was a monster of the spirit body type, he was still bound by the shackles of the flesh. Because the thinking circuit is in the spirit, the life limit has nothing to do with Adalman. Even so, he could not reach the point where he could continue to exist as long as he had a soul and an astral body. Just infinitely close to the existence of a spiritual lifeform that is not entirely immortal, that is Adalman. The same goes for the Paladin of the Dead, Albert, and the Dragon of the Dead. On top of that, they will also complement each other's weaknesses and fight cautiously. Adalman excels at long-range attacks with magic. Albert, who is a forward guard, supports him and occasionally uses magic to aid him. The Necromancer Dragon makes strong attacks from above and immediately replaces Albert as a meat shield if he falls into a state of exhaustion, or if he is wounded. This fit pattern is their must-win battle template. It takes a special attack to beat them as a small team. However, this time the opponent was just too bad. There are always people outside the world, and there is a heaven outside the world. This is also the principle of Hinata's spirit armor, which makes it possible to cut down various attributes when you meet a master who can use the legendary armed weapon with ease. Even the immortality attribute is not a problem. That's the way it is with the Hakuru. The legendary sword that I gave him as a reward must be able to use it freely. In this way, his fighting ability was greatly enhanced. Such a person would be reliable as a companion, but this time the legendary weapon was in the hands of the enemy. Moreover, the user is also the strongest fighting force on the Imperial side, the superiors of the Imperial Emperor's Order of Nearguard. Although the swords of Albert were a failure of Kurobi's creation, they were also the equivalent of a quality-class masterpiece. However, the enemy's sword was legendary. Even fighting with lesser quality weapons, it barely matched the opponent's, suggesting that Albert's fighting skills were higher than the enemy's. In the end his sword was broken by the enemy, and the whole squad was defeated for this reason, but it would have been obviously unreasonable to blame Albert for it. Rather, I should compliment him on being so belligerent. The results are unfortunate, but you fought well, especially you Albert. Your swordplay can only be described by the word wonderful. I'm ashamed to be. Adalman, you too. It seems that unknowingly, all the magic I imparted to you is now available. Your spirit of excellence is something I should learn from. I'm just as scared of trouble as everyone sees me. I'm not going to learn this and that. The idea of drilling into something other than your interests does not arise. But by contrast, I have the King of Wisdom as my excellent partner, so Adalman's research may come in handy for me in the future. How can that be? A man like me is not even remotely the tip of the iceberg of Lord Raimuru's wisdom. It's not me, it's the King of Wisdom. Well, I'm not going to correct him either. Don't be so modest. Adalman, I will give you greater strength. I expect you to turn failure into strength and grow even more. I, Adalman, would be willing to die for you, offering my powdered body and broken bones, if I were defeated in battle, Adalman said gratefully. I wish he'd stop saying unsettling words like powdered body and broken bones. In fact, he had refused to come here when I expressed my desire for Adalman to evolve. Lord Raimuru, I am not like the rest of you, but am in defeat. Hearing Adalman say that, I got a general idea of what he was thinking. It took a lot of convincing and consoling before I finally got him to accept it. When all is said and done, I didn't expect much from Adalman in the first place. Even when Shinji and the others reached the 60th level, I thought for a moment that Adalman and the others would lose. And now, Adalman has long since grown far beyond my expectations. It was just that this time the opponent Krishna was too bad for them. So, Adalman's efforts were not too much. With that in mind, I gave him the souls. Although it is a significant departure from what was originally intended, the maze will be our last bastion in the future. Fortifying the defenses here is a very important thing, which is why I let Adalman evolve. All the important research facilities are in the maze, and in some cases even the entire capital is isolated into the maze. When he first recruited Ramirez, he had no idea that the maze could be so convenient. The maze that had been used by us as a playground had unwittingly become something like a fortress. It was all thanks to Ramirez and Veldora. I thanked both of them in my mind and spoke to Adalman while I did so. Although you are lamenting the lack of fruit of your labor, I have a very good opinion of you. Just use future work to justify my opinion. Yes. I, Adalman, will live up to your expectations. Adalman's evolution began, looking the same as I did then, and an irresistible sleepiness assaulted him. It's not good to let him push himself too hard, so hurry up and finish the ritual. Well, I believe you. So, from today onwards you can use the name Gehenna Lord. Keep up the good work from now on and don't lose the name. Yes, as you wish. Phew, it's exhausting to speak with a sense of majesty. By the way, it's hard to think about these titles, I've been thinking about them all night long without sleeping. Granted, it's just too idle because I don't need to sleep. In short, Adalman also received the title of Lord, which symbolizes the highest position among my men. He is one of only 12 lords today, although there are still possibilities for more in the future. As a strong big subordinate, Adalman's speaking power will no doubt increase as well. The premise is that if there is a real opportunity for them to speak, well, it's not just Adalman who's active. Beside Adalman, who was resisting sleep, Albert knelt. Behind them, there was the necromancer dragon that had shrunk its massive body into a ball. Both were blessed, and there wasn't much time for me to slow down and talk to them. I grant Albert a new weapon to replace his broken sword. He had already been able to use his overwhelming sword skills before, and with the right equipment, he could be a great addition to his game. Since that's the case, then it would be fine to give him Kurobi's highest masterpiece. That's when the idea came to me. Among the loot seized from the Imperial Army this time were several sets of legendary-level equipment. Then, there was the very scarce mythical-grade equipment held by Grand Admiral Calgurio. This mythical-grade outfit would be a waste if it was just decoration, and I would have given it to Kurobi, but Kurobi said it wasn't needed. He wants to build a mythical weapon on his own. Kurobi had a point, and I agreed. The Red Lotus of Benimaru, reforged